think we're all in good shape. Are we all in good shape there? Yeah, great. Oh, Aaron, I have to make a joke about, is your ankle okay? Will you be able
We're ready to go.
Perfect. All right, well, thank you, everyone. I'll note the time as 1:05. So we'll kick off by saying we'll recognize that we're conducting our business primarily on the territories of the Ho-Chittos and the Tahltan First Nations. However, since we're all coming to you in a hybrid format, we're likely all across Nuu-chah-nulth and Coast Salish territory, perhaps even Waklewakiwak or Lekwungen speaking people as well. With that in mind, my name is John Jack. I'm the chairperson of the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District. I'm here filling in, actually, I think I'm the chair of the committee as well. And we're here to have our meeting regarding the Solid Waste Management Plan Advisory Committee meeting for the plan. Solid Waste Management Plan Advisory Committee. So because we're in a hybrid format, it might be difficult to see the folks who are in the boardroom right now. I'm coming to you from the territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and from the Vancouver First Nations. I'm in Vancouver at the Union of BC Municipalities the convention. It's going fairly well. We have a resolution about recycling and solid waste management coming up, so hopefully I can get back to the resolution for that. With that, I'm wondering if we can go around the table in the boardroom and have folks introduce themselves. We'll do the same online afterwards.
We have a spot later on in the presentation where we're going to do an intro roundtable just after the welcome, if that's okay.
Oh, okay. The standard way of doing things at the board meetings has been introducing everyone in the room, because we may have people watching this live or online afterwards. So if we could do an introduction now, that would be good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll start off. Paula Eichelberger, Solid Waste Manager for the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District, and I'll start right and we'll go around the table.
Harley Wiley, Sishat Elected Council. Thanks.
Fraser Work, resident of Tofino, British Columbia, ex-engineer for the town of Tofino, ex-engineer for the town of Victoria, the city of Victoria, and now a consultant on my own. Thanks and welcome.
Good afternoon, Brenda Sauvé, Solid Waste Coordinator for the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District.
My name is Tori Bouchard. I'm the Fleet and Solid Waste Superintendent for the City of Port Alberni.
Hello, I'm Jody Frank. I'm the Solid Waste Project Coordinator for the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District and the Project Manager for the Solid Waste Management Plan implementation.
Thank you for that. Harley, can you turn your microphone off? Thanks. Is that everyone in the room there?
Yes.
If we could do the online folks as well, because I think the way that the broadcasts are broadcasted and saved are that it's main speakers, so they don't see all the attendees. Tamara, do you want to start?
Sure. My name is Tamara Schulman. I am also grateful to be on the unceded and traditional territories of Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish here with you. I'm a waste reduction specialist. I've been working with Jody and Colleen and Brenda to prepare for this meeting, and will be supporting the process. I've been doing independent consulting for quite a while and have worked on several BC regional district plans. So I want to be able to bring what's helpful and then customize solutions and be able to support this process.
Terry?
Did you call on me, John? Yes, okay. Terry Deacon, I am here at INEO Employment Services, just around the corner from the ACRD. I operate Recycle Matters, which is a mattress recycling facility, as a social enterprise underneath INEO. And I also operate the Recycle Depot contract with the ACRD as a social enterprise to employ and train people who have barriers to employment.
Great, thank you. Robin, please go ahead.
I'm Robin Jackson. I am the Rise Above Plastics lead for Surfrider, and I previously ran the recycling depots in Tofino and New Clearlit.
Thank you. Colleen?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Colleen. I'm a communications consultant with a company called Zinc Strategies based in the Comox Valley, or the traditional unceded territory of the Comox First Nation. And I'm supporting the ACRD team on the communications and public outreach work that will be part of the solid waste management planning process.
Thank you. Aaron?
Thanks, John. My name is Aaron Rogers, Director of Infrastructure and Public Works in Tofino.
Thank you. Jackie?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jackie Arsenault. I'm here today representing Toquat Nation, where I'm the Manager of Housing and Infrastructure.
Helen?
Hello, my name is Helen Zanetti. I am the SD70 trust. I am an SD70 trustee, and I'll be the rep on this board. And I'm coming from the unceded territories of the Shot and the Wet'suwet'en Nations. Thanks for having me.
Berrien Vale?
Hi, I'm Cameron Vale. I'm the Manager of Operations for Berrien Vale Contracting. We hold the contract for the Alberni Valley Landfill and the West Coast Landfill.
Great, thank you. Tom?
Yes, apologies for coming in late. Just finished the meetings down here at UBC. My name is Tom Steer. I'm a councillor of the District of Tofino and a director, an appointed director on the ACRD and co-chair, alternate chair on this particular committee.
Wendy? Wendy might be away from her desk. She's a member of staff for the BCRD, and she's usually the one who runs the hosting for these meetings. Jake?
Hi, I'm Jake Turek. I'm the waste management engineer with the BC Ministry of Agriculture, BC Ministry of Agriculture and Food. Sorry, I don't understand why that's so hard to get out.
Don't worry about it. William?
William Severson, hereditary from Sichat, work with Taloquit, Solid Waste, and the CRD with their maintenance.
Thank you, Jue. Okay, so it looks like we have an agenda in front of us that's fairly straightforward. We don't have anything other than the approval of the agenda to do as a vote first. So if we could have a motion to approve the agenda as presented from one of the members of the committee.
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Terry.
Terry.
Yeah. Okay, any comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Or opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us into minutes. There are no minutes. Petitions, delegations, of which there are none. Correspondence for action or information. Nope. No requests for decisions. That brings us into number 7, which are reports. So welcome and introductions, which we've done. However, I'm wondering if we wanted to get into it the way that it was intended, maybe skip the introductions, but I see that we have a presentation in front of us. So whoever's going to do that, please take it away.
All right, well, thank you. So we'll get started. And again, just apologies for some of the hiccups during this first initial meeting. So I appreciate your patience. So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you and welcome. Thank you for dedicating your time to this very important process we're about to undertake as a group. As we saw in the introductions, we have a very dynamic group of individuals that have formed this advisory committee. Each member either represents a community group, a business, an institution, a perspective, a culture, a history, or a technical aspect. So it's a very dynamic group and it's really exciting. I also want to take a moment just to highlight how far we've come since the last waste plan, which was approved, developed in 2007 and officially approved back in 2008. Prior to that plan, recycling options for the ACRD were very, very limited. and garbage was just garbage. And since that plan, like I said, we've come a long way and established a lot of programs. And tomorrow we'll get into some of the highlights of those later on in the presentation. But some things to note that we've done so far since that last plan: residential curbside recycling was established, self-haul recycling depots for the AV and the West Coast, recycling transfer stations in rural communities such as Bamfield, waste reduction and management education programs, ocean plastic recycling, and more recently, the organics collection program, also known as Sort and Go, and upgrades to our landfills to promote even more diversion. So we've come a long way. We've created some great baselines, but we're not done yet. There's a lot more that's out there for us to achieve, which is why we formed this group to set that direction for the next 10 years on how we're going to look at waste and manage waste. And we're in that time where we need to start thinking about waste differently. It's not just an end-use product anymore. It's a resource, and it's a large part of waste going to landfill can be made into new things. So we have a really, really exciting opportunity ahead of us. Garbage doesn't just go away. We need to stop referring to garbage as garbage and landfills and dumps as those things. They are not, our landfills are not end-of-life destinations anymore. They're reuse depots where materials for the future will be collected and turned into other things. So again, thank you for dedicating your time to this advisory group. And I'm really excited to see the outcome of this plan. So thank you. I'm having some issues, more issues with the presentation and the slides not ticking over. So again, thanks for your patience. So we did a bit of the introductions as we kicked off the meeting. So again, my name is Jody Frank. I'm the Solid Waste Project Coordinator here with the ACRD. I have been with the ACRD since 2020 and most recently led the organics collection program and the Sort and Go program. So I do not work alone. I have a team behind the scenes here at the ACRD that definitely helps support the work that we do. So I definitely wanted to make mention of the project team here, as well as Colleen Dane from Zinc Strategies, who will be looking after engagement and comms support. And then Tamara, who introduced herself as well, who is our solid waste guru specialist, who has had a lot of experience developing these plans for other regional districts as well. So we have a great project support team on board here to support the group.
Great. There's the slides. So it's great. We have the slides up. I'll just chime in with Jody here. Because we've already gone through this, I'm wondering if it would work to take a couple minutes just to hear from maybe a few folks around what parts of the plan you're excited about, what kind of outcomes you might want to see. We'll be doing a little more when we're in person in future, but if just maybe popcorn style or however it works for you, John, just to have people either write in the chat or hear from folks in the room about a couple things you're excited about, just to set the stage here.
Yeah, should I start?
Please.
Yeah, so I'm looking at solid waste management as something that we can really improve in the whole region, and is something that will have not just a positive impact on the environment, but will actually do a lot of work in regards to reconciliation as well. So I don't need to remind anybody on this committee, I don't think, of the situation we have with the Alberni Valley landfill and where it's situated. And so we morally have to do as much as we can in order to divert as much as we can away from the landfill and do right by recycling, organics, and other forms of production anything we can do to add to the plan and execute it in a way that not only benefits the community as a whole through solid waste management, but also it does so in the spirit of reconciliation. That's what excites me about this. It's something that we can solve this issue in a way that can be a good example for all the others, and in a lot of ways making sure that we can have more robust recycling options for the whole community, not just residences, but institutions, commercial and industrial as well in the future. That's what I'd like to see, because the more we can do now, the less energy and the less material we'll be wasting, or at least contributing to this. I'll leave it at that though.
Great. Tom, did you want to go? And then for the folks in the room, we'll have just weave folks in as we go here.
Tom, I think you're okay, unless you're frozen, yeah. But you're.
Want to go up next? Yeah.
Yeah, my mouse was frozen. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to echo John's words as well. And to add to that, what I'm really excited about looking at here is, I think Jody alluded to, is reconstructing the narrative on garbage and how we might look at that in a much more positive role. It has been something that within society, and that larger question of garbage and what we do with it, it is an integral part of our society. And I'm really looking forward to how this group may be able to help restructure that narrative. And I'm positive that some very innovative solutions are going to be coming forward from this group.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else from in the room? We could do a round.
I'll go. Paulo here again. Obviously working inside the industry a fair bit with our contractors and interacting with a lot of the public. I'm really looking forward to see a lot of the input from all the different folks that dip into solid waste, because everybody has a hand in it, no matter what it looks like. And looking, echoing what we heard earlier, just looking forward to hearing those new ideas, where we want to go for next. We've been very successful so far. So what are those next steps looks like to, make things fairly sustainable for our community here?
Harley here. I haven't had a chance to look over all of the material, but when Jody was speaking, I do understand and I get the grasp of what we need to do with recycling. And I've been living in Victoria decades ago when this was being practiced, and the same thing with Vancouver and Surrey. So coming to Port Alberni, I was surprised that it wasn't at such a large scale as the other larger cities, but I'm glad to see it is growing, and I'm doing my part in that too. I regularly use the Third Avenue recycling station. I guess the thing I was looking at here is it's often left to the individuals, to the community, to deal with this problem. But I still look at, okay, it's good that the ACRD is taking some steps and the city and others are participating in this. But at some point, I don't see much in the way of municipal governments or others putting pressure on government and businesses to do their part in recycling. And it's personally, I'm speaking just personally here, it irked me when I was going to places like IKEA, and I said, well, you don't have any bags anymore. And the lady was quite pleased and said, well, we're cutting out bags because IKEA is doing its part for recycling. But then I thought, but look at the packaging that you're doing. Look at all of the extra, crap that is involved with this, the extra paper, the extra pieces of plastic, et cetera. And I'm glad to see that there is recycling for juice containers, milk containers, and other things like that now too. So it's expanding. But I still think that there are many things that we could and should put pressure on to government and industry to help in that regard. And if anything, it would help people that are in the marginal sections of society that are looking for some small way to get enough money together, collecting empties and things like that and selling them at the recycling station. If we had industry practicing more of that and there was a deposit fee for a number of things that are not right now, I think that would help take some of the burden off of us. So whether we do that today or not, I don't think that's feasible, but I'd like us to keep that in the back of our mind too. What can we do to put more pressure on senior governments and businesses and industry to do this and help us? Because it shouldn't be all on us. Thank you.
Yeah, and you bring up some great points that we'll dive into more around around business sector and how that works, and also some of those regulatory tools that we have access to locally, as well as of other levels of government, such as the recycling regulation, which has the extended producer responsibility piece that you alluded to. Other folks, anybody from the virtual crowd here? You can use hands or just jump in. We'll do a couple more and then keep going through. We do have some other things to discuss. It's just great to hear a little more from folks. Helen.
I personally would really like to focus on not having as much waste, so we don't even have to worry about it. So I'd really like to focus on that a lot more, and getting the public actually knowing what good recycling is more about reduction in my mind than actually recycling. We need to rethink how we're doing all this. So that's my personal focus. I also am looking forward to sharing what I learn here with the Sagoul district and beyond. And yeah, just a really great resource. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And maybe one more here. Terry, do you want to go?
Sure, thank you. I am really excited about diving into more recycling opportunities. Like, I think there's an opportunity to make business case for recycling and hiring people, like providing jobs for people. I think with our mattress recycling is a really good example of what can be done and how it can be done. And I've been exploring RV recycling. And I know that there are several businesses in Port Alberni that would jump on the recycle bandwagon if they had a way to do it. They just currently don't have a lot of opportunity to pick up and take their recycling or so looking at that and what that might look like in the future.
Great, thank you. That gives a good sense. So you can see in front of you, we've got the list of the folks that are representing the public. The way the ministry has us set up these plan reviews is there's representation from across the board. There's the public members will work by consensus, but technically the voting members. And then if we go to the next slide, there's the folks that have different technical expertise that are part of public sector, First Nations, and other key collaborators in the system who will be able to contribute expertise and also weigh in. So that's how we have it set up. With that, I'll pass over to Jody to speak to terms of reference. As that transition's happening, the one thing that I did want to mention is this is something, as Jody mentioned, that's a required activity to do every decade. It's a great opportunity to review what's been done, what's working well, what still needs improvement, and I think we're already getting some ideas, and that'll inform goal setting and some of the other things as we go through the process, and also a chance to hear from all of you and to get public feedback. So that'll all be weaving in as we go. Joe?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Our hybrid models are getting better all the time, hey?
So terms of reference, I don't want to spend too much time on this. The terms of reference should be attached with the agenda. So please have a read through the terms of reference for more information on the things that I'll just briefly go over. Roles and responsibilities. So as a committee member, focus of this role is we really encourage for each member to provide input and your knowledge from your community perspectives on various solid waste matters associated with the development and implementation of the proposed plan. Your role is to act as an advisory committee to the board of directors on items related to the plan. We really hope for your engagement and discussion, and please provide comments and ask questions for us to consider as the plan is developed. Throughout this process, we'll be sending information. Please review information that is shared by staff and provide input as you see fit. We'll be planning various engagement activities. So please help facilitate participation across your community or region when these opportunities are carried out. And be committed to attending these meetings. As I mentioned at the beginning, you represent various community groups or perspectives. So attending these meetings allows you to share those. So please be committed to attending as much as possible. And more of that information is laid out in the terms of reference. Decisions will be made on a consensus-based approach. And I'm just going to leave it at that, and we will spend the remainder of the time. I'll pass it back over to Tamara, where she's going to go over the systems overview.
Great. And while we're on the slide, I wanted to speak to the pollution prevention hierarchy on the side, right? We've all heard about the 3 R's and we speak to those. I think what's really happening, and it's reflected in your comments, is that reduce or rethink piece is growing, right? We are thinking a little more in a circular way. Businesses are working on that at different scales as well, where we want to have smarter product design and purchasing. We want to extend the lifespan of products as much as we can, and then we want to manage the recycling and have those outputs be inputs to a new part of the system. And so this is the hierarchy that the province puts forth and the way they explain it that we'll be talking about more as we go, because we do use more resources than what we can handle in a planetary or capacity. And so that reduction piece is definitely key. Moving to the next slide. For the regional district plan, it will encompass the full ACRD, as you can see in the image here. And we are just getting started with putting some of the system overview materials together. There's various reports that the regional district has. There's a waste composition study that's getting updated. So in these next couple of slides, we're sharing some preliminary info with you that we'll continue to flesh out and have in a memo that you'll be able to read, and that we'll also go through in more detail at the next meeting. Next slide. So based on that 3 R's or 5 R's approach, there's, thrift stores and repair centers and all sorts of different stores and facilities that help to support the overall solid waste management system. As it relates to the ACRD and contracted facilities, we're on a shorter list. And Jody had already mentioned some of them. We've got the Alberni Valley Sort and Go Center Depot, which is again expanding on just saying it's a landfill or the dump, but having making it clear that there's other diversion opportunities there as well. And then the various depots, West Coast Landfill and compost facility. So we'll continue to build that out and give you more background info and context, and hopefully get to do some site visits at some of these places as well as we move through the process. Next slide. So one of the other things we look at when we are, one more slide here. To 10.
She's just having some technical difficulties.
Okay. Oh, here we are. So we look at a couple of things when we're looking at those initial metrics. How much materials are being generated? So you can see this is in tons. It's the 29,262. And this is called a Sankey diagram. It's basically a way to put your inputs in and have a visual depiction of how much material we're talking about, so that we can see it as more than just a table with a bunch of numbers in it. So if you look across, you can see the light gray is the disposed. That is what's going to the landfill currently. If you go over one more, we have MSW, that's municipal solid waste. It's essentially mixed materials. The EPA in the US had coined waste as just that because it's wasted material. They've since switched to sustainable materials management. So it gives you a sense of what's going to the garbage. And then when you carry that across, you can see the residential amount, which is the 7,570, and then the commercial, which is just over 8,000. Below, we've got C&D, which is construction and demolition. So that gives you a sense of here's what's getting disposed. give you a sec to absorb that. And again, this is the first pass. We'll talk about it more as we go. The bottom there, you can see the blue for what's diverted, what's not going to landfill. You can see the composted amount and the recycled amount. The product stewardship associations that handle paint and tires and lights and all of those things, they track tonnages. So I think this is a fairly thorough number, but we will look a lot about reducing the amount of garbage, since the recycling sometimes can be tricky to fully track. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'm happy to kind of weave it in as we go, or we'll address them as we move along. Plus, we'll do a pause after this for questions. If we go to the next slide, keep in mind the residential and commercial. When we expand that out, we're just beginning to tease out the data and look at what are the subgroupings of where the garbage is coming from, where this mixed material is. And you can see from the top down, we've got residential curbside. That's what's contracted either through municipal or regional district. We've got residential and the private haulers, right? In some of the electoral areas and other places, we tease that out because even though those private haulers are also going to drop off, we wanted to show that number separately. And then you can see in pink, the residential drop off. That can be people bringing garbage bags and overflow, other things if they're doing a big clean out. It can sometimes be, some reno things as well. And then the fourth one, you can see the commercial, which is that same number that we saw below. To add another layer, if you look to the right, you can see the breakdown of what's in that. And this is based on preliminary results from the waste composition study that happened last month. So if you look at the residential curbside, you can see 33% of that is compostable. Yes, there's some organics programs going. It's normal to have that kind of percentage as your program's going. And then what happens is the ratio changes over time as the amount of organics, the yard trimmings, food scraps, food soil paper goes down over time. 13% is recycling. That would be the containers and the paper that is collected. Product stewardship are all of those other items that are collected by industry at end of life. Because this 100 kilogram samples, it doesn't reflect some of the bigger items that might go in, but it gives you a snapshot. And then the garbage or the other mixed materials that we need some design change around, that's that other percentage. So it just gives you a sense, when you look at most communities and you combine all of it, which we will also do as part of this process, you generally see that between compostables and existing recycling and product stewardship programs, a decent percentage, 60, sometimes up to 70% can still be taken out of the garbage using the existing systems. We just need to reduce that cross-contamination. Questions or thoughts so far? Helpful to see it visually? Great. So if we go to the next slide then, Jody had spoken to some of the updates since the plan, and this is a recap with a few more. There's been that branding, right? Having sort and go, having what we want people to do, it built into the name of the program is great. And then we can build on the education and outreach again to reduce contamination and increase capture over time. Whenever you have a new program, you want to have those policy changes to adjust bylaws and your fees and your collection pieces, and there's some other policy tools that can be used to promote diversion and waste reduction. For collection on the West Coast, I know there's a rope and netting collection. I know there's some Surfrider connected folks that I'm sure have more to say when we get to that. And also continued curbside diversion, right? For recycling programs, for the organics, again, for the food scraps and the food soil paper. And I know I moved back to the region about 15 years ago and was part of some of those earlier rollouts when we did those with the weekly garbage and the every other week garbage and the weekly organics. We could see up to sometimes a 40% drop in garbage, by weight when those programs would roll out. So having that 3-stream collection where it fits can make an incredible difference. And I know we're starting to see some of those things in this region. And then on infrastructure, there's been organics facility, landfill upgrades, landfill review, engagement. And that is an ongoing process of figuring out kind of what those transition strategies are as we're continuing to reduce waste and divert. So we'll go to the schedule. This is where we will give an overview, and we want to get some feedback from you as well. So we are at the first meeting. Always good to put your first item on the list so you can cross it off. And then we sent out the notice about having a meeting on October 4th. We're hoping that we can aim for an in-person meeting in Port Alberni on that. And we're thinking about either midday or towards the end of the day. So we want to get that feedback. I'll go through the slide and then we can come back to that. The proposed agenda will dive into the system overview a bit more, speak to guiding principles. The province provides a template, but we want to make sure we customize that and get your feedback. And then some work that Colleen, Jody, and others have worked on with putting a consultation plan together, which is required as part of the plan, and an initial survey, so we hear from the public. And then jump to November 23rd is when we're proposing to have a second meeting, and we would be going through some of those results and continuing to move forward the process. We'll go into more detail on that process in the next meeting, but essentially we're coming together, getting the existing system, we're getting some input through consultation, and then we'll be looking at gaps and options and discussing that as we move towards the plan development. On the right-hand side, this is from the website. There's an engagement site that I've got the URL for on the last slide. In case you haven't seen it yet, it is through the Let's Connect. And it just shows the overall plan flow, which will take really the main part of the work happening through mid 2024. And yeah, Jody, other comments or things to add on this, and then we can go back to get some input around timing.
Nothing to add from me about the schedule, but yeah, if we could get into October 4th and just getting some feedback on timing. Like Tamara said, we'd really like an all in-person meeting. We have some workshop ideas, and it just works a lot easier if everyone's in the same group, but we understand there's location limitations. We do plan on, when we run our in-person meetings, they're not always going to be in Port Alberni. The idea is that we will try and go to the West Coast, go to different locations throughout, and incorporate some facility tours as well as part of those meetings. So just keep that in mind. But October 4th, we're proposing a 12:30 lunch and then 1 o'clock meeting, or towards more of the end of day. So we're just looking at some feedback for preference.
Yeah, for folks who are online, maybe throw it into the chat, and if it seems like we're close to a tie, we'll rely on our chair and vice chair, and can also do a meeting poll if we need to.
My chat does not seem to be functioning. Sorry, Tamara. I just, in terms of scheduling the October 4th, just for ACRD staff, there is a West Coast committee meeting, and I believe that one's going to be scheduled on the West Coast here. I don't know if potential then for to have that out here, or it would be very difficult for some of us to be able to finish that meeting and get to Port Alberni in that time frame.
And you said that's October 4th that's happening?
That is correct.
Good to know.
This is John. So sometime in the new year, weather permitting, maybe we can discuss having, maybe in the spring of 2024, a meeting out in Huu-ay-aht territory with the completion of the Bamfield Road imminent. It should be easier for people to get there and back. We'd love to host you. Thanks.
And I'll jump in again, just one more for scheduling tomorrow. On November, I'm just looking at the schedule now. On November 22nd is an ACRD board meeting. And there may, and for those of us that will be having to travel potentially into Port Alberni, it might be on the 22nd, might be a more opportune time. Our board meetings are at 1:30, typically go for several hours. So there is probably potential, because a lot of us will be congregating there at that time, for maybe a morning or a late morning or morning session on that date.
Okay, no, that's good feedback, and we'll get a chance to sort that as long as we get the morning session right while everyone's fresh. Yeah, it makes for a long day, but it's smart to catch folks when they're in one spot for sure. So back to October 4th, if we need to rule that out, we may need to, because of the meeting timing, we may need to regroup around that. Jody, thoughts? And also I see the question in the chat here about the length of meeting. If we do in person, it's nice to do a couple of hours, because we'll want to have some refreshments and some time to interact and some breakout groups and whatnot. So I think it would be more on that scale, but I will pass to Jody to add to that.
So I think we'll see what comes out of the chat, and take Tom's feedback regarding the West Coast Committee meeting, and just take that offline and come up with a bit of a plan for location and just other logistics for that October 4th date.
Yeah. And it does sound like, based on that meeting, I don't know if it's possible to flex to October 3rd or 5th, or if that starts to pack too much in.
So with that, I guess we can open it up to questions, and then I will follow up with a plan for the schedule portion. But any questions before we wrap up?
Yeah, and then we have another couple of slides. But yeah, any questions about the system or the process at this initial level here?
I had a question. It's Fraser in the room here. I was just wondering how the team would be sharing information. So obviously a lot of the background information and historic documentation, that would be great for us to get caught up on, preliminary results of the solid waste composition study, that kind of thing. And also if we would be communicating on a channel besides just email, where we could sort of collaborate and learn from each other's curiosity. I don't know, like Slack as an app, that might be a good tool to share for the committee, to share information and ideas, and sort of like take advantage of any buzzes that are in play with respect to the material that we're looking at, or any ideas. I think it'd be wonderful to kind of feed off each other's energy in that regard, if that's possible. That was just my question.
Great. So in terms of information, I speak to that initially. We will be putting together a summary. The waste composition study will be coming out, and we'll just try to find the right balance of giving more in-depth written info for reading, and then summarizing it and having the high-level overview as an enticement for reading more deeply into it or getting clarifications. In terms of a Slack channel or something else, that's certainly something, if there's interest, that I would see what Jody and the team thought about that. But there's definitely multiple ways that we can be sharing information.
Yeah, I agree. And we will, I'll just check with IT and just see what platforms they will support and get something set up. But thanks.
Okay, great. And thanks to the folks that are weighing in on the chat here about timing too. That's a great initial piece. And, generally in this process, we work with the chair, vice chair, come up with some ideas. And then again, we can go to meeting polls too as needed. For this last slide here, it's nice to, add a little fun in as we go, and get a sense of where folks are coming from. So we wanted to give this as that we'll follow up by email too for this, but we wanted to get a little more info from you of just what comes to mind when you think about key priorities for solid waste management and waste reduction. So if you can keep it to, 3 or 4 words max, it can even be 1 word, and pass those to Jody by Friday, the 29th. We'll send that day before a reminder too, because it's always handy. Then we can just put a word cloud together and we'll have that as something to see next time, and that can kind of guide us at a high level through the process and serve as a bit of a reminder of what some of those priorities are.
Great.
Yeah. But it's also great that we'll be able to meet in person. We can use some of, the silver lining of COVID, right? We got good at a lot of these hybrid and online pieces, but we'll kind of take the best from both. As you can see here, here's the Let's Connect ACRD.ca /SWMP, which is already up and running and looking great. This will be the platform where we put the survey out. There'll be, I don't know if it's here or the other solid waste pages where, as things go, there'll be minutes posted and there'll be other information that's up, because we do want to have transparency as part of the process, in addition to what happens in the committee. I see a question here around receiving agenda and information prior. So we'll take note of the email there. Thanks, Robin, for that. And if there's any other logistics or those sorts of things, do be in touch. I know that there's some new processes in place and there's always a little fine tuning in the beginning. Any other questions or thoughts? Okay. Great. Well, I will pass it back to the chair here for any other wrap up.
All right, I think we're in good shape. If we could stop sharing, such so I can see everybody a bit better.
Mhm.
There we go. Okay, I think that's it in regards to the agenda. I think the only thing we need now is a motion from one of the committee members and the seconder for the only resolution we have for the business, which is that the Solid Waste Management Plan Advisory Committee receives reports A to E. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Mr. McNabb, and seconded by? Thank you, Robin. Okay. Any further comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. And if we could have a motion to adjourn as well. Thank you, John, and seconded by? Thanks, Tom. Okay. All those in favor? Motion carried. I'd like to thank everyone for attending online and in person today. I really look forward to further conversations about this. It's something we can really do well and be a good example for Island. John, go ahead.
Yeah, just sorry to be late. I spent the morning in emergency because a door of a cargo trailer fell on me. So, but I'm alive and well, and I think I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming then, John. I'm glad that you're here and I'm glad that you're gonna win the lottery. I have a few investments I'd like to be making with it. Okay, thank you everyone. Have a good afternoon and we'll see you all soon. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.